Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Vibe Guide. So, this week's episode is a little interesting because I tried to record it yesterday. Today is Monday. We're heading into a lunar eclipse tomorrow, September 17th. I tried to record an episode yesterday and it was just the most painful thing of my life. Like, I could not do it. I was so frustrated. And when I get like that, um, I get kinda angry and, like, I just get really frustrated because I wanted to get it done and get it over with and, like, stay on my schedule that I had because it's Monday and I work, the rest of this week and the episodes come out on Tuesday. So I don't like to, like, have it bump up, like, last minute because I just once I record these podcasts and I edit it one time, I just don't have the energy to go back through and, like, do all the social media stuff and, like, I just don't have it. I don't want to be bothered with it, you know? And so I get really frustrated when my schedule doesn't allow for that time and I'm like trying to do it while I'm working or at work and I just don't like that. So yesterday was a really frustrating day for me. I was like very emotional, just felt really, really, really off. I even went for a walk in the morning and that didn't seem to do it. And I went for a walk that afternoon, that didn't seem to do it. And then for all the women out there, I went and used the bathroom and I realized I started my period. So I was like, okay, well, that's perfect. That probably adds to the fury. Like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm really angry and irritated. But it's also a lunar eclipse. Did I say new moon earlier? I meant eclipse. It's a lunar eclipse tomorrow in Pisces, and I just feel these energies so strongly, and I think the more that you pay attention to it, obviously, the more, you know or maybe it's not, I don't know, maybe just more in tune with yourself that you are, the more you feel all these, like, times where you're off or you're more frustrated or you're more irritated, and so, like, you're just more aware of, like, the day-to-day changes that you have emotionally. And then it just so happens to align with, what's going on in the stars and the skies, and that energy and those vibrations, like, really affect us as human beings. So, I really found that to be interesting, and I wanted to do an episode about forgiveness, and it just wasn't coming out right, and I didn't like anything, and I didn't like the way it sounded, I didn't like what I was really saying, I just what I envisioned in my mind and, like, what the points that I wanted to get across, I, like, wasn't able to, like, verbalize it in a way that I liked. So, I just kind of let it go and I went a little bit more internal with it and tried to figure out because it is a lunar eclipse tomorrow. So it's really about, what's that shadow part of you that's coming up that you need to maybe work through to, get to the other side. And when you do this work, sometimes it feels like it's never ending. I'm like, I literally just worked with my shadow self. I literally just did this like 2 months ago. It feels like, why is this coming up again? Like, I feel like I passed that test. Like, gosh, like it kind of gets a little annoying sometimes for me. And it just was so funny that I did the episode. I wanted to do the episode about forgiveness because I felt like what ended up happening, like the more I kind of journaled and more I went introspective about, like, why am I feeling so irritated with myself? Like, why am I mad at myself that I can't record this episode and it's not coming out the way that I want it to? And like, what is going on? And when I dug a little bit deeper, I think there was a lot of fear surrounding like signing on with a production company for me. And I just feel like there's a shift coming, but I don't really know what that looks like. And I don't know. I was like talking to my mom about this morning because I'm like, I have a fear around having, working with a producer and having them maybe tell me that, like, not like I don't like what you're doing or like negativity, but like I know that their direction kind of has to change because I'm not an intuitive life coach anymore. I don't do like the one-on-ones necessarily. And as far as, and I always like come to this point with myself of like, I don't need to fall into a box. I just fight with myself on that idea of, like, society and, like, you have to fall into this box in order to have a podcast and whatever, but, like, you don't in that sense, but, like, as a marketing tool and as, like, something that our human brains, like, has to kind of organize for ourselves, like, yeah, you do kinda have to have, like, a foundation for something. You know what I mean? Like it can turn into whatever it want. You could just be one of those podcasters that comes on and just talks. And it's comedic and it's entertaining and like that's what it is. But that's not what's happening. Do you know what I mean? And so I feel like there has to be some sort of structure and like a foundational change. And that makes me really nervous because I don't know what that looks like. And I don't know. And I feel like this is what happened with life coaching. It was like I found something that I really thought I enjoyed and like I thought was like kind of the path. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, it's not quite it. It's not quite hitting right. It's not quite feeling right. And I feel like that's starting to happen with the podcast. So it was like a lot deeper for me. And I just felt really frustrated yet again that like something that I really want to work and I really want to be something that's successful and I enjoy it and it brings me joy. It's just like here we are again at this kind of like this like crossroads. I do feel like that. I feel like I'm at a little bit of a crossroads. Like we gotta, if I'm gonna have a producer on board, things are gonna change. And I just don't know what that looks like. And so I guess it's like my mom was like, it sounds like you have like a fear of success and like a fear of like, having somebody come on board and be like, this is actually really great, but like, let's tweak this, 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 and this. And I'm like, no, that's 100% what it is. Like, I really do have this fear of like things actually working out, which as crazy as that sounds, sometimes I don't know. Like, I think that stems from like a lot of like childhood and and this was also the lunar eclipse for me is in my fourth house yet again, which I'm so sick of my fourth house, like Cancer energy and like home. And like, if you listen to my other podcast and the episode where I had the karmic astrology reading, like I'm like vomiting up like the fourth house at this point. And I'm so over it, ready to move on. But I think that that's a big chunk of like my childhood is, it's very interesting for me because I felt so capable of doing so much and I felt so confident in my abilities, but there was always that piece of myself that held myself back and I felt a lot of self-doubt and a lot of subconscious things that I didn't know were happening, like self-doubt and not feeling worthy and not feeling like I could really do it and like who am I to think that my dreams are really anything, you know, important or that I can really do it. And I still don't really know, like, I can't really pinpoint exactly when I started to feel like that or why, but I did. And for a long time, it was very subconscious. And now it's like been unearthed for me. So I feel like this pattern of just like bringing it up and kind of working through it and, you know, having the podcast has really shown me so much of myself. It's been such a deeper journey than just like me talking into a microphone. It's really brought up so much inner shadow stuff for me that I like subconscious level stuff that I didn't even know was there, but I keep running into these crossroads with this podcast and it just like keeps bumping up into like my fears and like my shadow side and my subconscious and like these little things that I keep holding myself back, like there's nobody else doing it but me and like my conscious mind. And so that's like kind of where I'm at this week. And like this episode's taken like a bit of a turn because this, not what I plan to talk about at all, but I just felt like it was relatable for a lot of people. And I mean, maybe not the fear of success. Like, I don't, it's hard to describe that. You know what, actually, that came up? I was watching, do you guys follow Whitney Port? She used to be on The Hill. She's got, now she's like Fashion World or whatever, but she's got a YouTube channel and they rewatch a lot of like old shows and like, like have commentary on them or whatever. And they're really funny. And one of the shows they're watching now is what's the one where they get celebrities and, like, Jamie Lynn Spears was on one, and they go out into, like, the desert, and they have to, like, train like a Navy SEAL. You guys know what I'm talking about. I don't know what it's called, but it's, like, right on the tip of my brain, but I can't think of the word. Anyways, one of the girls on there, she was on, like, Seventh Heaven. She was, like, one of the actresses on there. I can't remember her name, Beverly or something. Anyways, she was talking about having this fear of success, and I was just like, "Oh, that's how I feel sometimes. I feel like that. I feel like I'm right on the edge of it, or like I'll have a bit of success, but I'll self-sabotage and I'll like talk myself out of it, or I'll, you know, go down a rabbit hole of like why I can't do that and why, well, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should. ah, that won't really work. And then I'll look stupid and then I'll just be embarrassed. And like, it'll just be another thing that I failed at. That's, you know what I mean? And like, you go through like this, you like beat yourself up, you know? And we're most of the time our own worst enemy, and our brain is. And so I just thought that that was really interesting. Like, it's just kind of been a theme that I didn't even realize was a theme until yesterday. And it just kind of boiled over for me. And I've just was like super emotional. And it wasn't really until today. Last night, I really like prayed about it and I asked my spirit guides, I just was like, please help me. Like, what are you trying to show me? Because I don't get it. Like, I don't see it. Like, I feel like I've healed a lot of this stuff. And like, I don't know what else is left in there. Like, I don't know what you want me to see. And then I woke up this morning and had, I felt better. I didn't feel like I got any answers, but I just felt better. And I felt a little bit more energized. And I listened to Christopher Witecki, he's an astrologer, and he always helps kind of clarify a lot of like what's going on in the stars. And because it really does affect us. If you don't think it does, like I don't know how your life rolls out. But for me, I'm like, it just makes me much more calm to know that like it's not just me. Like, there are things out in the world that affect us and our vibration and, like, our frequency as human beings, and, like, the planets are one of those things. And so it's, like, real, you know? And, because when you're smack in the middle of it, sometimes it's hard to see. And so listening and getting the information from an astrologer and, like, understanding what that might look like in my life, then I'm starting to, like, put the pieces together, and I'm like, "Oh." Okay, like the lunar eclipse is hitting on my fourth house of like home and like childhood and like here we go again, you know what I mean? And then I was able to kind of put the puzzle pieces together and figure out for myself like this is what's happening, and it's showing itself through the podcast really for me, and like figuring out whether or not I'm going to hire a production company or not, because I was like very excited. And then the more like last week progressed, I was just kind of like, do I really want to do this? Like, can I afford it? Um, this podcast isn't bringing in any income right now. Like, do I really want to put my hard earned money on this? Like, is it something that I really want to grow out potentially? And I just had to like really work with myself through that, and like the fear of really being seen and being heard. And, you know, I don't know, it might sound silly to other people, but that's how I've just been feeling. And I've been feeling like, these situations happen. And I'm like, I can never do anything like simple. It's like, of course, it's like a lunar eclipse. It's in my 12th house. I'm like, so frustrated. I feel like so burnt out with like work. Started my period. I've been like an emotional wreck. I'm like, I can't just like have anything just like low key. You know what I mean? Like if a lunar eclipse is gonna hit, like it's gonna like whack me in the face. And I'm just like, I'm still kind of waiting. You know what I mean? Like it hasn't officially happened. And lunar eclipses are famous for just kind of like upending your life and like closing the door on something that you thought, was gonna be there forever or something like that. So I'm still kind of holding my breath a little bit, you guys. But I don't know, I just wanted to share a little bit about that because, I think we all feel it, and if you're into astrology and things like that, you'll know what I'm talking about, and you can look up for yourself and your sign. You can look up your, sun sign and your rising sign, which is always helpful. Um, you can look that up and figure it out, maybe what are some themes for yourself, and, like, maybe, going a little bit more internal if you're feeling a little off. Like, I just feel, like, crazy. I feel like I'm very much in my mind, and I feel like I'm going round and around and around and around and around. And so when I feel like that, what I do is like I start to journal, which I got my journal right here. I go out in nature, I walk around, I try and like avoid people. I try and just really take the time to go inward if I can. I take baths, and I just like solitude. I don't like to be around other people because I just feel like my energy's already off, and I am a projector. So like my whole I absorb a lot of other people's energies, so it's not helpful for me to be around a whole lot of people. And then I start to like shame myself about that because I'm like, you're being kind of a hermit, like you're making it worse, you're isolating yourself when you're feeling down. And so, I just kind of have to like give myself a lot of grace this time around because I feel like I'm really beating myself up. And I just feel like that's like an inner shadow that I really have to, overcome. And I feel like I'm doing it. I feel like I'm doing the things and I do feel better and I feel like I have a lot more clarity. But it's just rough, like, feeling like this and just not 100%, But hopefully when the eclipse is over, the idea is that you come out the other end clearing a lot of things and kind of having an up level and, whatever needs to go, it goes. And you have to just know, like, even if it is something that's really painful for you, that it's for the betterment of yourself. It's for, you to really get to the next level, and if that means a relationship ends and it never comes back, okay, if that means a job's over and that doesn't come back, okay, like, everything is just kind of happening in your favor, even if it is super painful in a lunar eclipse, so, um, I just wanted to talk about that because it's very important, and I feel like I'm going crazy, and I know I'm not the only one. So, um, the other bit of the lunar eclipse for me is I always look at my rising. So my rising is in Aries. So my sun sign is Sagittarius and my rising is Aries, and it's in the 12th house for me. So all about like spirituality, and really, I feel like I've been meditating on how I kind of relate to others, and I feel like that's what's coming up too in the podcast is like this idea of, like, reforming it and, like, maybe rebranding and, like, having a different, identity for this podcast. It's like, I haven't gotten super clear on that, so I feel like that's a little bit of, like, something that's kind of holding me back, And then, like, my mom said also, she was like, "Well, Caroline, these producers, like, they could just give you ideas, like, they're not gonna tell you, you know what I mean? Like, you need to do this and X, Y, and Z. Like, they're gonna give you ideas." To like maybe help you. Like something might like ping in your mind and it might like help you get clarity. And I'm like, "Ah, Hillary, you're so smart." But it's true because I was just kind of like in a spiral. And like I wasn't even seeing that. I just was like picturing in my mind that they're going to be like, well, I don't think that this really works. Like you need to do this and that and the other. And sometimes I get caught in that. Like sometimes I really, because people are the experts in their field and they know kind of like what works and what doesn't. And sometimes I can get caught up in that and like other people's visions for like what I want, especially when I don't have it clear for myself just yet. So like that's kind of been making me a little on edge because I'm like, I don't know that I want to go in and be like, well, I know I need to make a change, but I don't know what. I feel like that's just not a good way to be. But then, like my mom said, it's like, well, if you do that, they might just give you ideas and they might, get your mind swirling and you can, something might stick. And I'm like, okay, you're right. You are so right. So, um, I just think that that reminder, like the Aries, my rising sign and just being in the 12th house of spirituality and just like what I did last night, just like asking my spirit guides for help and like really, really leaning on faith and like leaning on, I'll get through it and I'll get the lesson that I need to get. It's just, I'm more focused on like, I don't want to miss the moment and I don't want to miss the lesson that I'm supposed to get because I want to keep moving forward. And I think that that's, you know, a fear too that I might miss the lesson. And then I'm like, oh no, like and you have to stop doing that because everything happens just as it should. And even if, say, you do miss the lesson this go around, well, it's going to come around again and you're going to, be better for it. And maybe, in a few months or whenever the next lunar eclipse is, if it's the same kind of theme and message for you, you might get it then. And that's going to be like perfect timing for you. So, just a lot of that leaning into, like, my spirituality and knowing that, I'm very much so on a journey and I'm very much in the middle of it and I'm sharing it with you guys and I'm just being open and transparent and hoping that, like, little bits of this will help you guys because I think these themes can sometimes be, um, broad spectrum, if you will, like, kind of affecting everyone on a certain level. So, and an eclipse is all about releasing, like, just in a general sense, so I think I've definitely been working through that and releasing a lot of fears and a lot of bits and pieces of myself that I still really need to work on, and I appreciate, I'm glad that I still had these moments. Like, I'm glad for the hard moments, and I'm glad for a day like yesterday that really kinda was really frustrating for me because it just reminds me that I'm still challenging myself and that I'm still growing and I'm still evolving and I'm still open to the lessons, and I'm still open to, the energies that's trying to come in and, like, make me a better version of myself. Like, even if it is super hard and super frustrating and I wanted to, like, literally scream so loud yesterday and just, like, throw my computer across the wall. Like, I just was, like, so fed up with it, and I was like, "I give up. Like, this is so stupid. I don't even know what I'm doing." Like, I mean, I was, like, really on one. I'm like, "I'm not doing this anymore. Like, this is fucking stupid. I don't even know, like, what am I even saying?" Like, it was really rough yesterday. Like, I was, like, over, you guys. The vibe guide was done. It was a wrap yesterday. And today, here I am recording. So, and feeling a lot better. So it's like, this too shall pass. Just, like, take a deep breath, lean in on your faith and your spirituality, whatever it looks like for you, and, like, the answers will come. It will become clear. And thank God for me, it just started to clear up today, and I feel a lot better. I do feel like I still have a lot of work to do, and I'm making some decisions and moving forward the production team and stuff like that. So still working on some stuff, but I do feel like a lot more clarity around it. And yesterday, like, the topic, because I still wanted to touch on it, but I just thought it was interesting how it kind of came through because yesterday I really wanted to talk about forgiveness because I think it kind of gets a bad rap and, like, or not a bad rap, but, like, misconstrued a little bit. And I also thought that was so funny. It just hit me a few minutes ago when I was writing out, like, the theme for me, like, this lunar eclipse, and my sun sign Sagittarius, and it's all about, like, creating a new emotional home for me, and it hitting on that 4th house can also bring up a lot of stuff about home and about family. And if you listen or know me, like, we've just had the runaround with this 4th house, and I'm estranged from certain family members, and, like, I've just had a lot of turmoil going on with the family, and trying to, like, create a new life for myself that unfortunately some people don't get to go forward with me because there are just some things that I refuse to allow in, as a boundary. And so, yeah, creating a new, emotional home for me, forgiveness is really one of the key components. And I had to really ask myself yesterday, I'm like, have I really forgiven my family? Like, have I really forgiven? Like, especially for the situation that happened and, like, what went down last year. Like, have I really, you know, gotten rid of all the anger and resentment? And I don't know. I don't know. I think that forgiveness is a really hard thing and it takes a lot of time and it's not so clear cut. And I feel like some days I am super forgiving and I feel like I hold no grudge or no ill will. And then other days I'm a little bit more the opposite and I feel sometimes, like, really upset. And then I also think it gets mixed in with grief because, you know, the thing that I love the most in the world is just gone for me. And at a certain point it is my choice because I choose not to have family members in my life. Um and so in turn that means I'm not I won't have my dog in my life at this point. So, on a certain level, yes, it's my choice, but it was kind of chosen for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, So I still kind of grapple with the grief of like losing her and not being able to have the end of her, be able to share the end of her life. And sometimes I really struggle with that. And I don't know if that's anger and resentment or if it's grief. Like I kind of don't know. And I think it might be a mix of both. Um, but what I do know and why I do think that I've come so far in forgiveness and why I feel like I really have had a lot of success in creating like a new emotional home for myself because when I think about that day and I think about what happened and I think about what was said to me and I think about, the actions that were taken and, body language and a lot of things that just really upset me that day, I don't really think about it with anger anymore. I think about it with just like disappointment and sadness. And for me, I feel like that is encouraging that I've like hit a sliver of forgiveness and I've hit more of like getting over the mountain and seeing and looking back on the other side and like trying to take the lesson from it instead of being angry and blaming other people. And, I've just chosen to go the other route and just to take it as a lesson for myself because there's definitely a lesson in there for me. Like, no question. There was multiple lessons, multiple things that I learned, behaviors that I will never repeat ever again, and choices that I made that I'll never repeat ever again. And, that is what life is. And sometimes those choices are, the consequences of the choices that you make, sometimes it's extra painful. And, sometimes you don't get grace for them from the people that you think you would get grace from. Sometimes it just doesn't work that way sometimes in life. And instead of holding on to, like, so much anger and resentment and bitterness and being pissed off at the people who, wronged me. I mean, that's, what is at the basis of forgiveness. It's like letting go of anger and resentment towards someone who wronged you. And it's like I feel like I'm on some kind of scale of it because that anger and resentment has really dissipated, but it's turned into, I think, just grief. But I'm not sure because some days and, like, this is just real because, like, some days I really have a hard time, and I just get really but I can't say that anger is really on the scale. I just think I just get really disappointed, and I just feel like, "What a shame," Like, it coulda just been really different, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I just feel super bummed about it. And so I don't really know what that is. But I just wanted to say that because, the topic being forgiveness yesterday and it just wasn't coming out the way that I wanted it to. And then having it be reminded to me of like this home and, creating this new emotional home within myself and like forgiving myself, first of all, like first and foremost, for a lot of stuff in life, not even just, me being estranged from family members and like, the day that everything went down and there was, like, definitely moments that I'm not proud of, but I'm not gonna like I always say, I'm not gonna beat myself up about it. It just is one of those things and you have to forgive yourself. And I feel like that's a really important step and a really important foundational piece to, like, creating this new emotional home for myself and to creating, like, a really safe space for myself because we just have ourselves at the end of the day, like, it's just gonna be you, you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, So yeah, I thought that was just like a really important little plug in there and it just kind of came full circle for me because I initially wanted to talk about forgiveness because there was an Instagram clip that came across my feed and it was Dr. Romani. She's um kind of like she's like really niche down in like narcissistic personality disorder and she's really known for like talking about that and being an expert in that field and stuff like that, which is wonderful and it's great because I've experienced relationships with I know for sure one person who definitely has narcissistic personality disorder and it upturned my life for like 2 years. Like I was just a complete shell of myself. And so, um, yeah, I think it's really important, like the work that she does, because, when I was in it, I had no idea about it. I had to buy a book and read all about it and try and figure it out for myself. And I even had a psychology degree at that point, like it just happens. Like I never in a million years, like me having a psychology degree and being a smart, driven, fiery person, I never thought I would end up being like a shell of a human being from a narcissist. It just wasn't on my radar. So like when it happened, it just kind of like was whoa, like okay, this is what, a year into it, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is what it looks like to date a narcissist." Like, "Whoa, I'm really in it. Like how do I get myself out?" It was like a tornado. It was crazy. Like the mind games are just holy moly, it's just insane. So like I said, like her work is really important, but there was a clip that she did. She did a podcast with somebody and he basically asked her, like, do you forgive the narcissist who like, harmed you or whatever? And she was like, no, absolutely not. Like I'll never forgive them for what they did to me. And like I'm still working on trying to feel safe in myself. And she kind of went on and on and on about it. And I was just like, man, that's like a really I just don't like that messaging, and she has such a big platform, and I just felt like that's a really big miss right there. Like, that's how I felt. I just felt like you had an opportunity to really let people know that it's okay to forgive and it's okay to move on. It doesn't mean that what people did to you is okay, and it doesn't give them a green light to do it again. It's like you learn from these relationships and you learn from these terrible situations, like dating a narcissist, like you learn, And for me, I learned very quickly because I ended up in another relationship with one and I knew immediately what was going on. And it was a lot of gaslighting, it was a lot of lying, it was a lot of like just weird shit. And I was like, you know what? I was out of there way faster than the previous relationship. So I know I was like learning and growing and evolving. I was still frustrated that I was like still attracting it, but, I've moved past that chapter and I forgive those people. Like, I don't have any ill will, like none at all. I'm just like, if that's how you choose to operate and that's how you choose to treat people, I mean, I think it's incredibly sad, but I can't change your life. You don't go to jail for being a narcissist. Like, what am I going to report you to the police? Like, I mean, it's just, that was, like, one of her things too. She was like, "It's just I'll never forgive them because 'cause they're going out and doing it to other people." And I'm just like, "You're giving away so much of your power and so much of your energy to these narcissistic people that harmed you." I just felt like the point was missed, and I felt like she could have really drove home the point of, like, it is so important to forgive because it gives you your power back. It gives you your energy back. It gives you your sanity, and it allows you to make the playing field. You know what I mean? You're not messing around with other people anymore. Like you've set the boundary. Like now you know. And it's okay to be like, I don't appreciate what you did to me. I don't think it's right, but I know that you're a human being having a human experience as well and you're on your own journey and you know what I mean? It's not up to me. Like all I can do is just like forgive and like move on because I don't want to hold that negative frequency in my body. I don't want to have low vibrational, emotions like anger, resentment just hanging out of my body because some asshole treated me like shit. Like, I'm not holding on to that. Like, goodbye. Have a great life. Like, I hope the next woman that comes in contact with you, I hope she knows about narcissism. Like, that's all you can hope. Or, like, maybe that guy will go to therapy. Maybe he'll really get it one day. Like, I don't know. But guess what? I'm going over here and that's just the end of my journey. And I'm moving on and I learned my lesson. And I forgive you. Just do not come over here ever again. You know what I mean? Like, so that's really how the forgiveness thing got popped into my brain because I was like, "Oh, I think she really missed the memo on forgiveness." And you could see it in our body language and like she got really intense and like really angry and like you could see it and feel it from her. And I just thought, "See, like they just still have power over you and like you have to forgive and like move on." And then that's kind of like what I was trying to discuss in the episode when I was recording it yesterday, and then today, going a lot deeper within myself, and then realizing the lunar eclipse was in that family, you know, center for me. I was just like, "Oh, like, have I forgiven? Like, maybe that's what I'm missing." Like, maybe I truly haven't forgiven myself, like maybe I really am still walking around with a lot of like shame and guilt about how things have played out. And, so yeah, very interesting. But I still wanted to bring forgiveness in because I think it's really important. And I think that it's really one of the biggest tools as a human being that we have to like heal ourselves and heal our communities. And, when you look at a larger scale of like what's going on in the world, it's rough. And there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of hatred and there's a lot of circular things that are generational that just keep coming up and going around and around and around and around and around because no one's forgiven on either side. There's just a lot of hate, And so yeah, just thought it was like an important message for like my listeners, my little corner of the world. Like, make sure that you're checking in and that, even the people that did you wrong and that did you dirty and that it was super painful. And like, you might not ever think you can forgive them, or you might think forgiving is weak, or you might think forgiving is letting them know that what they did is okay. It's none of that. It's for yourself, it's for your healing, it's for your being, it's for your soul, your spirit, your physical body. Okay. It's for your physical body because you don't want to be hanging on to those emotions. So do what you need to do to like forgive the people around you that maybe have done you wrong, and also forgive yourself. Go a little bit deeper. So that's really it. It's a short and sweet one, I think. Like I always say, I don't really know the time on this because I use Zoom. So yeah, not this episode turned out way different than I thought, but it just is what it is. This is what I signed up to do the podcast for, was just to be real and authentic. And like, even if this doesn't make sense to anyone, like whatever. It made sense to me. And if you get nothing else out of it, look up your astrology and check out what's going on, in the lunar eclipse for you if you're feeling a little off. And I just feel like you can never go wrong with the messaging of forgiving people and reminding people to be kind and compassionate and forgiving. So that's where I'm at today. And now I'm going to go walk around my neighborhood and try and get my life together. And yeah. I hope this podcast helps you guys. And we'll get through it, you guys. It's just one of those things, and we're going to get through it. And you're going to trust the lunar eclipse and trust the things that come up for you even if they're super difficult, and you're going to make it and be amazing on the other side, and just have an up level and be super proud of yourself that you got through it and that you learned so much about yourself. And that's where we're at. I'm calling it in. And so it is. Okay? You guys have a wonderful week. We'll chat soon. Bye.